What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Striking Gold, your 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Network. My name is Rob Lowder. I cover the 49ers for all of you guys on the other side of the camera and on the other side of the speaker. That's KP. He also covers the 49ers for NinersNation.com. And it's time to move on to the next, I guess. We spent quite a few weeks doing our roster rundown series, which I enjoyed. You know, every time I do that, I even learn a little bit about the roster or a little bit about a specific player that I didn't quite know, didn't quite think had a chance, maybe did, maybe doesn't, you know, where he did, what he did prior, all that jazz. So we've got that out of the rear. So now everybody, and hopefully you guys, should have a much more detailed, a much more, just a stronger grasp on the roster. So now that we've got that, it is time to make our attempt, our early prediction at the 53-man roster. And we will be switching screens so that you can see my screen and you can see our super sweet Excel spreadsheet that we've gotten started. But before we get into that, I mean, if you're looking for the latest news, and I'm not even sure it's from anybody that should be cited as a report.
This is a good start.
You would be shocked to learn, KP, that the 49ers could be interested in one of the best pass rushers in the NFL that was already traded and then canceled. So if you just wanted to know, if you just weren't quite sure that the 49ers could be interested in one of the best pass rushers in the league, in Max Crosby, here you go, man. Now you know.
Do you think they're the only team that's going to be interested in Max Crosby?
I think there's probably about 31 others.
Right.
But the 49ers, they're interested too, damn it.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's breaking news, something that I hadn't considered before. That kind of affects my roster breakdown now that I think about it.
I know. Well, we're doing offense today, so we're giving ourselves just a couple more days in case the 49ers make the move for Max Crosby. Now, I'll say this. Swap out Michael Williams for the same trade the Rams gave up for Myles Garrett. But you're swapping out, what was the pass rusher they sent back? The Rams sent the Browns.
Jared Verse, jeez.
Yeah, okay. Swap out Jared Verse for Michael Williams, and then send that exact same trade package to the Raiders for Max Crosby. Would you do it? Which is a first, a second, and a third, and then the player? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Would you do that for Max Crosby?
Yes.
If you were John Lynch.
Yes. Not really hesitant. You're trying to win now, right? Everybody thinks future. I'm trying to win now. I'm thinking in terms of 2026, 2027, because I'm assuming, he'll be around for 2 years. The first round picks probably not going to have the same kind of impact. Second round pick, third round pick, probably not going to have the same kind of impact as Crosby. And Crosby's going to unlock so much for your defense today, tomorrow, and for the next probably 3 years. So I think that would put the 49ers make the 49ers Super Bowl favorites, honestly.
And I don't know that the Raiders would even accept that offer. You got Michael Williams coming off a torn ACL. doesn't really fulfill the same type of role as a Max Crosby does. Certainly doesn't come in anywhere near as close as having an impact on the quarterback that Max Crosby does. But again, there's injuries, there's age, I don't think Max Crosby is as valuable as Myles Garrett. So there, you would have to have you would consider something a little less valuable. But that is just the hypothetical that I came up with in this moment. I did not think of that before I hit go live, and then I knew I was going to mention Max Crosby, but I didn't know in what context. So we did not talk about this beforehand. This was just freelancing. Probably sounds freelancing though.
Is that a trade you'd make?
Yeah, I'd probably do it.
I would be I don't know how you would consider yourself as a GM, but I'd be very aggressive. Like I'd be all in on trades and all in on sending picks. And then like obviously you stay off social media because everybody's going to call you an idiot no matter what. But I think in terms of team building, getting acquired players, not just acquired players, right? We're talking about Max Crosby. And honestly, a lot of the trades and the moves the 49ers have made, I wouldn't regret in hindsight, even if they didn't work out if I was John Litz. So yeah, no, I would continue to put my foot to pedal, and like if that opportunity presented itself, then no doubt about it. Give me.
The old Strawberry Reacts has a different perspective. He says, I'm not giving up one of our players, though. I'm not giving up Pearsall or Michael Williams, Ricky Pearsall or Michael Williams or Renardo Green. That's like giving up 8 to 9 years of cost-controlled rookies for what, maybe 1 or 2 years? I don't know how long you'd be getting Max Crosby for. And again, there's some injury concerns there. I'm looking up his over the cap right now. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this. Again, this was not really like a planned thing. Okay, he's signed through 2029. Super reasonable cap numbers. $35 million this year, which is a big number, but not necessarily a huge number for an edge rusher these days. But then it goes down to 29 in 27, 27 in 28, and 28 in 29. So the numbers are pretty reasonable, and you could always rework that. And there's no void years on that deal. It's just straight up playing time. So fun to think about. Again, not something we're taking seriously. It's just the rumor mill. It's the off season. Everybody wants something to talk about, and it was predictable that the 49ers would have interest in Max Crosby because, like we said, there's probably 31 other teams that also have interest in Max Crosby. Maybe 30 because the Ravens probably wouldn't have interest in him anymore. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to think about. So today we are doing our one half of our 53-man roster prediction. We're going to start with the offense, okay? And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up my our little Excel spreadsheet with my 53-man on offense. There it is. And we are going to bounce back and forth between mine and KP's. KP did a 53-man prediction. I did one, and neither of us consulted with each other on who was doing what. And we'll see where they differ. We'll see where they're the same. And we'll just bounce back and forth as we do each position. So starting off with what might be the most mysterious and controversial and difficult to predict position of quarterback. I've got Brock Purdy making the roster, surprisingly enough. And then we've got his backup, also decent player, Mac Jones. Breaking news, right? Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, 1-2. If you're looking for something genuine, I would probably say that I didn't keep 3 quarterbacks. And there are a lot of people that think that the 49ers would be considering keeping Curtis Rourke now that after his little redshirt year coming off of injury, or maybe even Adrian Martinez out of Clovis West High School. Should he beat out Curtis Rourke? I don't know, man. This roster is actually going through it. There's a decent amount of depth on this roster. There's a decent amount of there's more quality players than there were last year. Last year, the 53-man roster was pretty easy to predict. It was pretty cut and dry. This year, the depth has grown. There's more quality players. There's more quality competition amongst the younger players. There's more like veterans, free agents coming in to push other people off the roster. So it's a little more interesting. Strawberry Rack says, "Do you think Brock Purdy is being pushed out? Social media team only ever posts smack."
They really do. They've been posting the
They're
mess out of him lately. That is a pretty funny.
They're leaning into the
take.
love for Mac Jones. I mean, Mac Jones does seem lovable, but I think Brock's job is safe. So let's jump over to KP's 53 man, and here it is. We left the notes in there. As you can see, my 53 man roster prediction, if you're on YouTube, is just kind of beautiful, symmetrical. All the uppercase, everything looks nice, everything looks organized. I requested that KP do the same, and this is what I received: is one uppercase. The rest normal with and then you've got the receivers with all the SpongeBob writing. So it's, but KP does have Brock Purdy and Mac Jones making the 53-man roster. How did you come to that conclusion, KP?
Yeah, for those of you who can't see this on the wide receivers, Rob just would not stop hounding me. So I made sure that he saw that. As far as Adrian Martinez goes,
that all caps Bish was there the entire time he created this 53-man
100%.
So
I saw Adrian Martinez underthrow a pass by about 15 to 20 yards at OTAs. I think if Mac would have gotten hurt in that Rams game, I think it was week 5, and we were looking at the potential of Adrian Martinez coming in for a snap or whatever it was, I think we might have seen like Wildcat before we saw Adrian Martinez. So don't have to worry about that. And just speaking to the roster, there are so many other areas and that we're going to get throughout this series, whether it's offense and defense, where you look at the team and you're like, no, you can't have a third quarterback because you need a player here, a player there, a player there. So pretty simple here. Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, and if Mac or Brock goes down, you have Mac, and then you can activate an emergency quarterback. But I would imagine they're pretty set on having 2 quarterbacks. So we'll go to running backs. That's easy. I don't think there's going to be much here either. So I have 4 running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Jordan James, Kalen Black, and Kyle Juszczyk. Only 4 running backs. So Isaac Guerrero didn't do himself any favors. He's going to miss training camp. And with that, man, that basically – like, what can you do with him? Like, if he's not even going to give himself an opportunity to fight during August, I don't think he's going to make the roster. And then from there, you're looking at a bunch of the other guys that they've been signing and, on and off the roster through the summer, whether it's Sincere McCormick. Patrick Taylor Jr. might have a chance because he is a special teams guy. But also, you'll notice throughout the rest of my roster, the reason that there are so many other positions, I guess I should say, is because I think they're going to rely on those guys to be their special teamers, whereas McCaffrey, James, Black, and Juszczyk, they're going to be like core offensive players, so they're not going to rely on those players to be on special teams. So that's why I kept 4. Rob, did you have the same 4?
I did. There they are, all beautiful and uppercase. Christian McCaffrey, that one's obvious. Jordan James, Kalen Black, you can move those back and forth however you wish. I just didn't think there was any other running back worthy of a roster spot. When I was looking at the rest of the depth at other positions, you've got Isaac Guerrero, who again I think his time with this team has run its course. Just to be honest, and then you got Patrick Taylor Jr. and Sincere McCormick. Patrick Taylor Jr. almost seems like he's got a little place in the coaching staff's heart. I think he's probably well liked in the building. He's been around for a few years now. And so there's like you said, there's a chance that he makes it, but I think that this is pretty cut and dry. I like those 3 right there. I like the idea of all 3 of them getting snaps too. Now that could mean like 15 carries for Christian McCaffrey and then like 5 and 5. And even then that's a lot of carries. That's 25. That's a good kind of standard though. But I just like the idea of both Jordan James and Kalen Black getting the ball and kind of moving through that rotation, kind of letting that competition carry its way into the season, just to see what most guys have. What I don't want to see is Christian McCaffrey, again, getting like 25 touches, and then these guys just get like 3-1 or 4-0. I would like to see all of them get into the game. Strawberry React said, do they try and get a late round pick for Guerrero or just cut him? I'm assuming that
who's going to take that?
Right. I don't think that anybody's going to offer anything for him. Of course, you would love for that to be the case. You do one of those things where you make it clear that he's going to be cut, and then see if another team calls you and says, "Hey, before you cut him, can we give you a seventh?" And then you could do that deal. But I don't think that anybody would offer that for the old Isaac Garendo. Leon Sandcastle said, "I do think some fans are writing off Curtis Rourke already because of OTAs, but it was his first time healthy in fully 2 years." Yeah, it's not so much with me. It's not so much what Curtis Rourke did in OTAs, but more of what the rest of this roster looks like. And can you spare a spot just for a quarterback that, one, hasn't necessarily shown? We'll see what the preseason looks like. Again, this is all done now versus NFL teams have to do it after preseason. So this stuff could change, and we'll probably do it again after preseason. But with me, it's not so much anything he's done, but there's just a lot of spots, a lot of players I'd rather keep. Obviously, Kyle Juszczyk, he had a great season last year. I thought he had such a huge hand in what the offense was capable of doing, which wasn't much, but I think he had a huge role to play. And like I said, looking forward to seeing what Jordan Jabes and Kalen Black are doing. Hopefully, Kyle Shanahan can just find the fortitude to get them on the field. Wide receivers, our favorites. Mike Evans up there up front. It's weird seeing that name in relation to the 49ers. Just putting it on there, typing it. It was, Dieter was very critical of Rourke after OTAs. Yeah, I mean, again, you're like you said, man, he's just getting started. We'll see. Things change very quickly. And like you said, Leon, he's just getting into it. Mike Evans, behind him, Ricky Pearsall. Such a huge year for Ricky Pearsall, man. I think he can have a huge year. I think there's a chance, probably a small chance, but a chance that Ricky Pearsall in some statistical category has a better year than Mike Evans. Like maybe it's yards, maybe it's receptions. I said it's a small chance, but I think if Ricky Pearsall can stay healthy, he will greatly benefit from Mike Evans' presence. And even the presence of like a Deshaun Stribling, just the speed around him to open up space to give him the things. And I really think that Brock Purdy is going to lean on Mike Evans. So again, small chance, but I just think that this is a huge year for Ricky Pearsall. Deshaun Stribling, this is kind of constructed like a depth chart here too. I do think that Deshaun Stribling is going to kind of step in as the third wide receiver. Given Kyle Shanahan's just disdain for rookies in a weird way, I think that he might bounce back and forth between these two. I don't know where Demarcus Robinson sits. That's a name you don't see on here. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan's going to let him start the offseason program training camp as the number 3, and then you kind of see Deshaun Stribling getting sprinkled in, and then maybe there's some Christian Kirk, or maybe Robinson's already kind of being pushed out, and it's between these two. It's hard to say. And then I got the two young guys, the two young Jays making it, Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins. I'm going to predict that Jacob Cowing stays healthy, and the 49ers see him actually getting quality touches throughout, targets throughout the season. And then Jordan Watkins, way too early to move on from a guy with that. He had a good offseason, man. I was there for a lot of his training camp practices before he got hurt, and he looked good. He looked a lot more well-rounded than you would predict based on what he looked like at Ole Miss and what Ole Miss asked him to do. So, this is what I got. Don't think there's anything crazy there. Let's bounce over and see what KP is working with, and with the old SpongeBob text.
Yeah, so that was tough about Demarcus Robinson because I didn't know where to put him either. Just at these last OTAs, he was certainly working in, but there was no Ricky Pearsall. So I agree actually with what you said about Pearsall. I think he's going to be just a big beneficiary of Mike Evans. So I can see Mike Evans being the third down, the red zone, the clutch guy that they need. But I can see Pearsall being that early down, that big play, that splash guy. And that's really going to allow them to use the other guys in kind of a complementary factor. So Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, Deshaun Stribling. And then I was really tempted to say Kirk wouldn't make it, but I guess I didn't know who else would step in for him. I think you tried the experiment with Demarcus Robinson last year, and because of that, now that spot goes to Christian Kirk this year. So you're swapping out Demarcus Robinson for Christian Kirk's speed, essentially. You're not really relying on them to play special teams as it is. And your special teamers, as far as returners goes, are going to be Cowing and Watkins. And maybe like they can cover kicks, whatever. I wouldn't think that would be the case, but pretty clear cut though, as far as who the top guys are for sure. I think it's going to be Evans, Pearsall, and Stribling. And then the rotation factor from, all right, do we need a shot play? Do we need speed? Do we need guys on the field to stretch the field? So open up underneath for the rest of the guys. So that's where Cowings, Watkins, and Kirk will come in when they need slot, gadgety wideouts to run away from players.
The only thing keeping Demarcus Robinson's chances at reasonable to staying on this team is his contract. He has a
contract.
He has a $2.7 million cap number, which is very, very reasonable. Christian Kirk is less, but I believe it's less. I'd have to go back and look at it. But if they cut Demarcus Robinson, they're going to incur $3.7 million in dead money and only save $1 million. So there's not necessarily an incentive to cut him. And even if you were to change that to post June 1, it doesn't even help. They're still paying $2.4 million, and then they would only save $263,000. So there is, if they move on from Demarcus Robinson, it's because one of these guys right here, Christian Kirk, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, made it to where they felt like they had no choice. None of them are going to make a practice squad. I would think either Jordan Watkins or Jacob Cowing. I think both would get snatched if you tried to send them to the practice squad. And then Christian Kirk, that's kind of the X factor, man. He's not signed to a contract that like makes him, forces the 49ers to hold on to him. I'm trying
just
to find
1 year with minimal guarantees.
Yeah, he's got a $2.9 million cap number. I'm waiting for the page to load here. And
the contract doesn't suggest that Christian Kirk is an asset that they are really going to rely on in 2026. Right. That's the easiest way to talk about what his contract is. So, and then you mentioned like incurring the dead money, which obviously it's not something you want to do, but if you see that Kirk's healthy, if you see that Watkins is healthy, if you see that Cowing's healthy, are you really going to hold on to a 10-year vet? Probably not. If that 10-year vet really isn't bringing anything to the table, which is why you would guess, okay, Kirk's going to be the vet. Kirk's going to be the quote unquote old head alongside Evans as opposed to Robinson this year, because Robinson got his chance last year and he made some plays in the playoffs, but it wasn't nearly consistent enough throughout the regular season. And, with 18, 19, 20 games, however many games they played last year.
Right. Yeah. They're actually very similar. So if you look at the cap savings versus dead money, the difference between Demarcus Robinson's is like $2.6 million, and with Christian Kirk, his entire contract is basically worth has a dead money hit of 2.7, and they could save 180,000. So they're actually dealing with similar numbers between Demarcus Robinson and Christian Kirk. So it may come down to one or the other. And then, these other names that are here, I could see the 49ers, Mike Evans, obvious. Ricky Pearsall, obvious. Deshaun Stribling, of course. Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins. Those seem like strong chances. I would be surprised if the 49ers were willing to move on from either of them at this point.
Their contracts have to matter too, by the way. Like Cowing and Watkins, rookie, cost controlled. Obviously, Watkins is only 1 year into his deal, Cowing too. But to be able to have those two wide receivers running 4 threes for pennies, I think that has to matter.
That's a great wide receiver podcast. Just 4 threes for pennies or something. It's just got a good ring to it. So maybe the competition among this group, and I don't think Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins are out of danger. I think they still have to earn it, but it may come down to Christian Kirk versus Demarcus Robinson.
And another reason why you're not going to risk running a Cowing, running a Watkins through waivers. Demarcus Robinson's been around the league. He's been around quite a while. So I think you can try to sneak him through waivers and sign him back to the practice squad.
Right. Leon Sandcancel said, would you consider Christian Kirk or Demarcus Robinson as tradable wide receivers? Almost too good to cut and not locks at the same time.
I think based on their contracts, no. I think based on what the 49ers were able to sign Kirk to, one with 2.5
and the timing and the fact that he had been sitting in the free agent market for a while.
So he had a really good playoff game, but that was aided big time by a big play when he was battling injuries, and he has a pretty significant injury history. I would imagine there aren't going to be teams lining up to unless they suffered multiple injuries, which is how you get to that situation to begin with. But I would imagine you're not going to get much for either.
Yeah, I think if there was a chance a team would offer you something for one of them, it's DeMarcus Robinson. When they signed him in free agency, that was a little quicker. They did that a little quicker. He got a bigger deal. Whereas, like Strawberry React said, Christian Kirk spent some time on the Texans practice squad and came in, made an impact late in the season. But the 49ers signed him later into free agency. So I don't think a team would offer you anything from Christian Kirk. I don't think a team would offer you anything for Robinson either. But I think if between the two, he would have the higher chance of commanding just something, rather than a team having to compete with him against anybody else in free agency. So there's your group right there. Pretty strong, man. Pretty strong. Like a starting three of Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, and Deshaun Stribling. That's nice. That's Ricky Pearsall and Deshaun Stribling bring real speed to the mix. Mike Evans brings a different type of speed. Again, he might look slow, but he probably covers 5 yards in 2 strides. So he's moving. He's moving. And then Jacob Cowling, both Jacob Cowling and Jordan Watkins, like 4-3 per pennies. That's the name of their album. They're both fast. So I don't see why you wouldn't want them on the rosters. Again, with the ultimate 49ers caveat of, is everybody healthy? But even Christian Kirk too. Like every single one of these guys brings an element of speed that they haven't had in a while. So that's why I think the run game probably picks up a little bit this year. Your receivers are actually have speed. They can threaten a defense more. And then that should open things up a bit for the gentleman above them. Okay, let's jump back to mine and tight end. Now this is obviously a boring one. I have George Kittle on the roster right now. There is a good chance that he starts the year on the PUP list, which means he would miss the first 4 games. But given how much he is campaigning that he'll be ready, or he's outwardly saying that he'll be ready for the first game of the season, I still don't think the 49ers would do that, especially when it involves so much travel to Australia, which, if you don't know this, traveling and flying actually takes a toll on the body, especially if you're healing an injury.
Not good for the ligaments.
No. So it wouldn't surprise me if George Kittle is kind of like practicing before the 49ers play the Rams in week 1, but then doesn't play in that week 1 game. I don't necessarily think he starts the year on the PUP list, though, because, again, that forces you for him to miss the first 4 games. If that is the case, it could be much worse. I would not fault the 49ers or George Kittle for doing that at all. That's why I put down here in the notes, if George Kittle lands on the PUP, add Khalil Dinkins. Undrafted free agent, tight end out of Penn State, Khalil Dinkins. Fantastic blocker, but maybe an underrated athlete and seems to be pretty comfortable catching the ball. And they gave him a decent amount of guaranteed money, which typically with undrafted free agents means that they're almost guaranteed a practice squad spot. But it also, to me, means they like him. They're interested in him. They wanted to make sure they came here. And with Luke Farrell's underwhelming season last year, wouldn't surprise me if the 49ers were like, let's just plug him in there now. But I was looking at contracts earlier, and I think Luke Farrell's another one that wouldn't necessarily make sense to get rid of, but I have to take a look at it again. But KP,
no, you're right.
No surprises here. Let's jump over to yours. You pretty much did the same thing. What do you think of the group of tight ends?
So you can go light at tight end. I know you're talking about the potential of the PUP for George Kittle. I don't think that's going to happen. He just means way too much. And I think you want to have like a little rev up period. And I don't know if you want to play the Broncos without him. So I think you should be able. Well, we can just scratch off week 1, but you should be able to beat Miami and Arizona without him. I don't know if you can feel as confident about that with Denver, and you should never rely on one player to do it all, but pretty important player we're talking about. So I would imagine week 4 is kind of a ramp up period after the last few weeks are his, preseason and practice. He gets his legs underneath him at home against Denver, and then he travels to Seattle. So I would imagine that's when we see him is week 4, which yeah, you don't want to carry a guy who's not going to play on your roster for 3 weeks, but this isn't just any other guy. So I think you can go light at tight end because Kyle Juszczyk's basically a sweat tight end. He's been playing tight end just as much as fullback. So
I think he said at some point that he's been working with the tight ends a lot as well.
That's not as like I don't even know if they view him as a fullback. Obviously, he lines up there, but I would imagine if we were to pull the splits over the past 2 seasons, it's been just as much, if not more, tight end reps than in the backfield. So Kyle Juszczyk will allow you to go light at tight end, which is a nice benefit to have. So yeah, no real reason I think to go long here at tight end. Jake Tonjes is going to be the featured, I guess, quote unquote featured. But honestly, Kittle on the PUP list is another reason why I think we're keeping so many wide receivers, and Kittle not on the PUP list. Kittle missing the first 3 weeks. Let's just assume that he's going to miss the first 3 weeks is why we're probably going to see more 11 kind of personnel, or maybe it's more more running backs out in the passing game. So there's going to be some creativity for Kyle Shanahan, whether it's wide receivers, whether it's running backs. But I think Jake Tonjes is going to be the featured wide receiver when it comes time to pass. But you said Luke Farrell had like an underwhelming season last year. I think that's putting it a little polite because when he was on the field, it wasn't the best. So I was a little surprised that they didn't go out and do anything. But you're talking about his contract. And his contract really doesn't.
It's not as bad as I thought. His contract's not as bad as I thought. He has a bunch of void years, which the 49ers love doing. If they did a post June 1 cut, they'd lose 1.2 million and save 2.6. But again, he's got a $4 million cap number in 2028. What 2026? This is weird because he signed his contract in 2025, but that's already gone. So here's his contract. He's got a legit season in 2026 with a $3.5 million cap number. Then he's got another normal year in 2027 with a $3.8 million cap number. So this year, actually, I was misreading it. I thought I was looking at 2025, but I was actually looking at 2026. If they were to just straight up cut him this year, they'd owe $7 million and they'd only save 3.5. If they did a post June 1, they'd save 2.9. They'd only save 580,000 and still owe 2.9. And then there's stuff. So it really, unfortunately, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to cut Luke Farrell yet. Again, unless there's somebody else like that they just feel like they have no choice and they'll just bite the contractual bullet. Leon Sandcastle said, Farrell is one player I really think they can upgrade from. He really underwhelming last year. I really like Khalil Dinkins blocking, and he got some receiving ability too, being a wide receiver, running back, QB in high school. Yeah, he looks perfectly comfortable catching the ball, and he looks like he's not fast, but he moves well enough. They just never really asked him to do much at Penn State. He had like 14 catches his second to last year and 14 catches in his last year, but I kind of liked what I saw. It's just a matter of how good of a training camp he has. So, KP, why don't you guide us into the offensive line?
Yeah, so I would imagine we have some pretty similar things here as well. So, starting Trent Williams. I know we mentioned that Connor Colby's been starting at left guard, but again, I'll believe it when I see it. So, have Robert Jones slated as a starter. Then Jake Brindle, Dominic Puny, Colton McKivitz. So have 10 offensive linemen here, as you can see. So Enrique Cruz, Connor Colby, Carver Willis, Brett Toth, and Vidarian Lowe as the backups. So you have vet, rookie, second year, and then rookie as a backup. So you have a nice little mix there. I would assume this is somewhat of a redshirt year for Cruz and Willis. If Williams does miss time, I would imagine that's when you throw in Lowe because he's just played before, like he has that experience. And may the best man win at left guard. I would guessing here that you would hope that Robert Jones is the best man, but if not, then so be it. And that's Colby. So be it. Maybe that's Willis. So we shall see there. I don't know. It's to me again. I don't want to say it's set in stone because who knows what happens, but I just can't imagine this team rolling out a 7th rounder from a year ago with the playoff aspirate. Like you don't go out and sign Mike Evans and then are like, you know what? Connor Colby left guard. So that doesn't make sense to me. But it's a nice little mix. It's a nice group. There's plenty of depth. And I really do think this offensive line is going to be closer to very good than just kind of good, honestly. So it as with anything with the 49ers, giant asterisk health. But if they can stay, just relatively healthy, I think they're going to be able to put up quite a bit of points.
There was a large contingent of Patriots fans that were actually, because Will Campbell, the Patriots first rounder, 4th overall pick in 2025, there was a portion of last season, and obviously things still tended to work its way out because Patriots made the Super Bowl, but there was a large portion of Patriots fans that were actually upset when Vidarian Lowe had to come back out of the starting lineup for Will Campbell again, because Will Campbell struggled a lot in his rookie year and struggled a lot. He's only had 1 year, but he struggled both at the start and after he came back during his rookie year. And again, there was a large contingent of Patriots fans that Vidarian Lowe stepped in his place and played pretty well. And the 49ers gave Vidarian Lowe a not light contract. Like it's a pretty sizable deal. I keep clicking out of overthecap.com over and over, even though I keep needing to go back there. Where's he at here? Vidarian Lowe. There he is. He has a $2.3 million cap number. Let me see if it just has the text from his deal right here so I can read it. Vidarian Lowe signed a 2-year, $9.5 million contract with the 49ers with $5.75 million fully guaranteed and a $2.76 million signing bonus. So that's not a you might make the roster contract, and that's also a you might need to play contract, because sure. whether it's Trent Williams or whether it's Colton McKivitz. I mean, Colton McKivitz hasn't had any problem staying healthy, but Vidarian Lowe is a quality swing tackle that has played. And like I said, Patriots fans were a little upset that he had to come back out of the lineup when Will Campbell got healthy again. So I think that's a good signing for the 49ers. That really helps them going forward. If you go to my 53-man prediction, it's the same. Trent Williams. I have Robert Jones starting at left guard right now. That's just who I'm assuming is gonna. I'm assuming gonna make it. He's the veteran. He's the most experienced. He's shown the most quality snaps out of everybody else there. I really like Brett Toth a lot. I think that he's a former Eagles player that's done both guard and center. But he wasn't participating in some of the offseason program, and I'm just really not sure how quickly Chris Forrester feels like he's going to get him rolling at that spot. So I'm not sure. Trent Williams, Robert Jones at left guard, Jake Brendel at center, Dominic Pooney at right guard, and Colton McKivitz at right tackle. Then again, same thing. You got Vidarian Lowe, who I feel like can be a quality backup for both Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz. Brett Toth is a nice little backup for both Jake Brendel and Robert Jones, or whoever wins that starting spot at left guard. Carver Willis, I don't know where they're going to plug him in. I know that Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports Barry at one point thought that Carver Willis was kind of a favorite to win the left guard position, but I don't know, man. They might like him at center. He might be a backup center. He might be a backup guard. He might be a backup both. That kind of creates an interesting dynamic between Brett Toth and Carver Willis. Like, it's not necessarily, to me, a competition to make the roster. Carver Willis is obviously going to make the roster. Brett Toth, probably, strong chance. But they're both competing for what could be the spot at left guard or what could be a backup at a specific spot. So there's kind of an interesting dynamic between these four, actually. I should include Connor Colby in this conversation. I don't think he's the best player to plug in at that left guard spot. But between Connor Colby, Carver Willis, Brett Toth, and Robert Jones, they could all realistically be in consideration for that left guard spot. So,
and that's where training camp's going to be fun. That's where I would say the preseason, right? We're going to learn a lot about Willis. We're going to learn a lot about Colby. We're going to probably learn a lot about Cruz and of course the veterans. And that's going to determine a lot of, whether who's going to play, who has a leg up, how the competition is going to go. I haven't seen anything about joint practices, but that would have been good for them, I would imagine, to go against.
They're having two. They're having one
different color jerseys. Oh, that's right. The Titans.
Titans is one, and I think it's the Raiders
LA?
again.
Yeah. Is it?
Could have been the Chargers. Could have been.
I think Chargers. It was. I was going to say LA, so I feel like it is Chargers.
Practices.
Like those 4 practices, 2,
right.
However many
Chargers.
practices it is, like that will be very, very good. Just as far as competition goes, because once it comes to that time in August, we're talking about 13, 14 practices in a row going against the same guy who you probably know his moves by now. So you're not really learning anything. So that preseason is going to be very big for all these guys for this group.
Yeah, Titans are having a joint practice with the 49ers in Santa Clara, and then the 49ers are having a joint practice with the Chargers in Inglewood. So that'll be nice. Again, that's those are quality snaps for what looks like a pretty significant competition here. It'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. And then you've got Enrique Cruz, who a fifth rounder that they seem very excited about. He's a freak athlete. He's funny enough. He would have been one of the fastest players on the team last year. I think you talked about it once, where he got up to 20 miles an hour at one point. He's very athletic. Enrique Cruz, if you just look at him, he reminds me of Mike McGlinchey. He doesn't carry a lot of extra weight. He looks like he could be a tight end, and I think that Chris Forrester's really excited about him. I think that they think that he can be an eventual starter in replacement of the future Hall of Famer right there. And that's a hell of a task, but he has the measurables and he has the athleticism. It's just a matter of whether or not he can get everything else under him. Even I'm not going to be able to pull it up fast enough, but I thought that Dane Brugler of the Beast said something similar. Yeah, he said an interesting day 3 flyer, still green in many ways, but encouraging 2025 tape. His takeaway was Cruz is still green in areas and learning how to use all his tools in unison, but the encouraging play on his 2025 tape gives NFL teams optimism. He could be an interesting day 3 flyer for a team running his own scheme. So I think that the 49ers kind of have eyes for him as a future starter. It just has to work out. That's a lot to ask for somebody. Leon Sandcastle said, I'm not going to lie, I kind of hope Brendel gets dominated in camp by Osa, West, Collins, and Halton. I'm desperate for an out. The world is all over the place, opinion-wise, on Jake Brendel. And I know, KP, you've been a decent Jake Brendel supporter. Where do you think he lands in the grand scheme of centers in the NFL, and how do you feel about him these days?
I think he's top 10. I think he's right around that 10 number, I would imagine. He's not like an all-pro, but he does so many good things. He does a lot. I think he's a plus player is the best way to describe him. I would argue that he's the second best lineman after Trent Williams. I know it might seem like a low bar, but I thought it was just as if not more consistent than Dom Pony last year. Pony had that injury that he was battling where he struggled for the first month and a half of the season, but I never really got that from Brendel. It's easy always to remember, the one play or the 2 plays, the 3 plays where, you might see a pressure, you might see a missed block, but there are 50 or 60 other plays in a game that always get taken for granted that nobody ever brings up when things do go well. So I think, it's always just interesting, fascinating to me that's what we focus on. So I'm a big Brendel guy. It's going to be probably the last season where he's on the 49ers roster just with his age, his contract. So that's why I would imagine, they're looking at Willis. Maybe they're looking at Brett Toth as an example, but I would imagine this is it for Brendel.
Yeah, I think the thing with Brendel is he's a much better run blocker than he is a pass protector. So, and he's actually a really good run blocker, but that gets noticed far less than struggles in pass protection because it always ends up on some type of highlight clip. How many times have you seen anybody in the 49ers fan universe post Jake Brendel run blocking highlights? You know what I mean? You see plenty of lowlights where he couldn't hold up in pass protection, which is valid. It's fine. It's a real thing. Obviously, one of the last things you want to do, you don't want to give up pressure from anywhere, but interior pressure from your center can just wreck a play so quickly. And so I get why there's a spotlight on Jake Brendel, but at the same time, it kind of just ignores the part of his skill set that's valued. The other thing, nobody can quantify the things that Jake Brendel does at the line of scrimmage. Kyle Shanahan puts a ton of emphasis on the centers. A lot of offenses put the onus of some of those calls on the quarterback, whereas Kyle Shanahan puts them on the center. That's why he likes older veteran centers, because he knows they're going to be able to handle the mental aspect of the game. So I'm not anybody. I don't know enough to defend Jake Brendel. I do know that his run blocking is vastly superior to his pass protection. And anytime any offensive lineman struggles in pass protection, it's going to gather a lot of eyeballs, which is fair. It's just, nobody ever really takes the time to talk about what else he might do well. Cal Chipto said Brendel's top half, but probably not much longer that he can maintain that. That's probably true. And the 49ers are probably, that's why they have, Brett Toth, center capability. Carver Willis projects as either a guard or center. So they've got a couple younger players on this list that could slide into there if they need them. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, because I know that Kyle Shanahan just doesn't want a young player in that spot. He doesn't want to ask a young player to do all the things that he typically asks a center to do. Okay, so there you have it. I think our 53-man prediction on offense was identical.
It was.
I think. Now I know that I cheated a little bit. I know that our 53-man predictions for defense is not identical. But to me, the offense was a little bit more cut and dry. The only really wrench we could have thrown in each other's predictions was maybe keeping the third quarterback, which neither of us thought was worth doing. And I didn't really think, could the 49ers realistically drop one of these offensive linemen? Could they drop Brett Toth? Could they drop Connor Colby in favor of adding one more to another position? They could. You got to keep in mind, too, Connor Colby was a 7th rounder. That being said, he's now a 7th rounder that got legit starting snaps, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if another team was like, I can work with that. Let's plug him in at the back end of our 53-man roster. KP, is there anything else you want to add to our 53-man roster prediction for offense?
No, I don't. I think we're going to probably differ on the defensive side of the ball, and we can talk more about...
your prediction's going to suck, and mine's going to be fantastic.
We could talk about why we think or why we're keeping 10 offensive linemen, because that's going to impact the defense. Why we only kept 3 tight ends, because that's going to impact the defense. So I think offense is pretty clear cut in sense of, who's going to play, who's going to be on the roster, who's going to be the backups. There might be 1 or 2 names, but we're probably looking at the 49ers offense on the screen right now. Yep.
It seems pretty clear to me. Again, there's some tipping points in here. Could the 49ers just end up going 5 wide receivers and, neither DeMarcus Robinson or Christian Kirk makes a roster? Like, that would surprise me, but there's certainly ways in which this entire setup changes. 49ers have a ton of, as you'll see in our next episode, which will be Monday, the 49ers had a ton of depth, a ton of interesting players on the defensive line, the defensive front. So that could definitely force them to get weird in other areas. But I think we did it. If you guys are, let's see what Rick D says. What's going on, Niner Nation, Niner Empire? Let's go, 49ers, gentlemen. Good evening, 913 in Chicago, a diehard 49ers fan. Rick D is coming at us from Chicago, man. Happy to have you here, Rick. Happy to have you. Appreciate you stopping by. If you are watching the stream right now and you haven't done it already, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the stream. You guys have already been in here commenting, so you've got that. If you're listening and you haven't jumped over to the YouTube channel, subscribed, and been a part of that, feel free to come on over. If anybody that's here right now wants to jump over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening and leave us a 5-star review, that would be greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. But you already know what it is, man. We got to wrap this up. And again, we will be back on here early next week with the 53-man prediction for the defense. You already know what it is, man. For another episode, I'm Rob. That's KP. This is Striking Gold, and we are signing out.